Okay, well, thanks for coming in today, Dion. As you know, we've been meeting here for a little bit, and just wanted to, we talked about the fact that we might start working on some CBT or cognitive behavioral therapeutic interventions, and today seems like as good a day as any. So why don't you tell me a little bit about your week and, how things are going, and we'll take it from there.
All right, fair enough. Yeah, like I say, I've been looking for a new job. I've been seeking better employment. Something that will actually reflect what I feel I should be, paid. And I'm currently working at a facility, and they pay me. However, I just don't feel I'm being paid what I'm worth. So this past week, I had gotten some information about an opening at a facility from a colleague of mine, and so I said, well, let me go ahead and submit my resume. So I sent my resume in, and a few days had passed, and so I said, okay, because she said they really needed to fill the position urgently, so I said, okay, well, let a few days pass, and then I call, and I get the clinical supervisor on the phone. No, actually, this is the thing, I didn't get the clinical supervisor on the phone, and I called and I got the receptionist, and they said, well, hold on, she's in or out, she may be on a call, let me check, and I'll put you on hold for a moment. I said, sure, that's fine. And then 10 minutes or so passed, and she comes back on the line and says, oh, I'm sorry, she's busy right now, she's on a call, can you want me to transfer you to her voicemail? So I just thought, man, it sounds like I'm just probably not going to get this job. I'm thinking.
So you started to have some negative thoughts about,
right?
Because it was hurry up, rush, let's get you on board, and then the brakes went on.
The brakes were applied, and then next thing you know, as I'm sitting there waiting, I'm thinking in my mind, like, well, if she really wanted to speak to me, she would have taken the call, and I'm imagining she's there in her office, because here's the thing, the receptionist asked, oh, well, who, or what's your name, or who can I tell her is calling? So I told her my name, and I thought, oh man, told her my name, and so now she's going into the office, telling the supervisor, oh yeah, it's this guy so-and-so on the phone, and the supervisor's going on, with this guy, So I'm imagining that she's like, just tell him, tell him I'm busy, I don't have time to talk to this guy.
Okay.
And I'm thinking to myself, wow, and the whole time I'm sitting there waiting and just getting more anxious. And so, I started thinking, well, I probably won't get the job.
Okay.
That was my line of thinking.
All right. So, we've talked about things like mind reading and predicting the future.
True.
And some of these types of thoughts that come into our head that may or may not be rational. And so, can you identify any when you were sitting there waiting for her to either take your call or not take your call, and your head started running? Can you identify any of these types of thoughts?
Yeah. Actually, as I was sitting there thinking, I was having this conversation in my mind, like, that's not necessarily true. Are you just, are we going back to irrational thoughts? Are you having automatic thoughts that something is taking place that's not?
Right.
So at the moment I started thinking, like, she doesn't want to talk to you. I said, well, am I just thinking this in my head? Am I just getting anxious because I'm sitting here waiting? And so I thought, yeah, that may not be true.
Okay, well, I'd like to drill down on that thought. She doesn't want to talk to you, and see if we can use a 7-column thought record to kind of look at what was going on during that process. Okay, so let me give you a pen. Come on over here. I'll keep you off camera. Oh, you're ready to go. Okay. All right. So in a CBT thought record, what we do is we kind of just describe briefly here what the situation is. So basically, just a brief description. You were on the phone, and you were on hold, and you and who you were with, and sort of get into the mindset of reliving that whole situation. Okay, so just a few words about where you were, who were you with, what were you doing, and so you can sort of visualize what the circumstances under which this took place. So, like you said, I'm just going to track along with you here.
Right.
You were on the phone, right?
On the phone.
And you can shorthand it, on the phone. And were you with anyone at this time, or were you just by yourself?
I was alone at the time.
You were alone, and were you at home, or were you in the office, or?
Well, this part is somewhat self-incriminating, but I was in the car.
You were in the car. You were in the car parked, no doubt.
I'm not gonna say if it was moving or not, but I was in the car.
Okay, you're in the car. Okay, and you weren't driving, of course. You were
Exactly,
parked.
not
Yeah,
driving.
yeah. And okay, so you're having this feeling basically that was associated with a thought. We've talked about cognitive behavioral therapy and the way that thoughts and feelings associate with each other. So at that point, what were you feeling? What was your emotional state at that point?
I was feeling slightly anxious, actually.
You were anxious? Okay. And on a scale of 1 to 100, about how anxious do you think you were?
Probably about a 5.
Oh, so you weren't anxious at all?
Well, okay, 100.
Yeah.
1 to 100. Yeah, okay, maybe like about a 50 then.
Okay, so
I was
50.
thinking a different
Okay, you were 1 to 10 in it there. Okay. And any other feelings or emotions that you were experiencing besides anxiousness?
I was almost beginning to feel, let's see, how would I phrase or characterize this? I was almost beginning to feel as though, well, let's see, like go from the thought process. The thought process was that either A, they'd selected someone else, or B, they didn't feel that my call was important. So maybe I felt as though, let's see, I felt as though I were inconsequential. Let me see. I just kind of felt.
We talk about thoughts and feelings, and usually feelings can be described in one word, like angry, depressed, anxious, frustrated. So besides anxious, what other feelings were you?
Let's go with frustrated. I like that one.
You do? Okay. Well, on a scale of 1 to 100, how frustrated were you feeling?
Probably only about maybe like 15 or so.
15. Okay. Were you aware of any other feelings? Now, what I want you to do is think about sitting in that car. It's minute 5 on your 10-minute wait. Okay. Put yourself there. Close your eyes if you want to. What are you feeling? You're feeling frustrated. You're feeling anxious.
Maybe disappointed.
Disappointed. Okay. And how disappointed are you feeling?
Probably about 20 or so.
Okay.
Because at that point I was still in limbo. I'm like, well, she's going to take the call. And the longer the time span.
The time went on, these feelings started to.
Yeah, I was like, well, it doesn't look like she's going to be taking my call.
Okay, great. All right. And so you were feeling anxious mostly, it sounds like, and you were also feeling frustrated, and then also you were feeling some disappointment, right?
Exactly.
Now, as we've talked about, and we've learned in CBT from the research that thoughts and feelings are intimately connected. And usually the way that the model works is that thoughts give rise to feelings, not the other way around. For a long time we thought that there was this pool of feelings. They came up and we had thoughts behind them. But basically thoughts do generate our feelings. So you mentioned a few of those thoughts, like You know, they don't think I'm important.
Right.
I'm not making enough money where I am. Things like that. So, what kind of thoughts were going through your mind, and what memories or images were in your mind at that time?
Okay, well, I imagine the first thought that I was thinking was that they had likely selected someone else already.
Okay, they probably want somebody else, or they likely selected someone else.
Yeah, so either, I'm not going to get the job,
Mm-hmm.
or the next feelings I thought, because I said, well, that may not necessarily be true.
Mm-hmm. So you were working to get those feelings or thoughts.
Right.
You were countering those with some rational thinking. Okay, and were there any other thoughts that were connected with your disturbed feelings?
Yeah. To be quite candid, I was like, this lady's just blowing me off.
This lady's just blowing me off. Okay. I'm being ignored. I'm being blown off. Mm-hmm. Okay. All right. And how about with the anxious feelings? Was there anything in particular that there were thoughts that were triggering anxiety or anxious feelings?
Yeah. Let's see. I would say that probably the thought that I may have to remain employed in the facility that I currently work.
Mm-hmm.
And that's not a worst case scenario. It's better than not being employed at all.
Mm-hmm.
But
so basically, if I was going to shorthand, I have to stay stuck in the job I'm in.
Mm-hmm, stuck in the because I have a job and that's a good thing.
Okay.
But financially, it's
not making it. Okay, so now what we're going to do is we're going to drill down a little bit in these thoughts. I have 3 thoughts that you gave me, negative, what we call negative automatic thoughts. They likely selected someone else, I'm being ignored, and I have to stay in a low-paying job, basically, is what I have down here. Of those 3 thoughts, which ones evoke the most negative emotions when you think it?
Let's see. Having to stay in a low-paying job, I believe.
Okay. Now we're going to look a little bit deeper into that. Now, if that were true, let's just assume that it's true. I'm not saying that it is, but let's just assume that that's a valid thought. What would that mean to you? What would that say about you as a person?
What would that say about me as a person? Well, it could be interpreted as, not that that's necessarily true, but it could be interpreted as, if I were having these type of, automatic thoughts, I might begin to think that I'm not worthy of getting a better job, because I was rejected, from this position.
Okay. And if you were not worthy of a better job, what would that mean to you, and what would that say about you as a person?
Well, that would mean, for me, financially, that I would continue in the current state that I am in, and what that would say about me as a person.
What would it mean to you? What would it say about you as a person? What's underneath that thought?
Well, there's several different ways we could go with that. Could say maybe you need to get yourself in gear and get a better. What I was thinking was that it could mean, if we were going down that line of reasoning, I think it could mean that I'm not successful. Maybe that could translate into
I'm not successful.
Right.
Okay.
Like I'm less than successful because I'm in a position that I am not necessarily happy.
Okay, and if you were not successful, if that was kind of what was the engine driving those other thoughts, that I'm not successful, so therefore I'm not worthy of a better job, I'll have to stay in a low-paying job and we can go up the ladder. But if we're going to go down the ladder from I'm not successful,
what would be the next?
Yeah. What if that were true? And of course, we're not saying it's true, but we're digging for the nuclear fuel rod that's
fueling this.
Is fueling this, right? So if it were true that you were not worthy of a better paying job and you aren't successful, or that you may even want to say, I will never be successful, might be a more, what would that say about you?
Into probably, let's see, it could probably mean that either, I was thinking from a perspective, it would mean that either I feel like a failure, or I'm an emo kid, or
failure.
Yeah, I could say maybe that would be what would be something, an emotion that would evoke, I'm not successful.
I think it's common, an anxious thing as we're moving in our career is, we don't want to fail, and certainly we don't want to be failures.
This is true.
Yeah, and that. So, do you think that if you were to pop the top off of I'm not successful, could there be a feeling of I'm afraid or I'm a failure or something?
That underlying motivation, possibly. Let me ponder that for a moment. Maybe that's the thought underneath it all that kind of led to those things. Because on surface level, naturally, I feel and think that I've been quite successful in terms of things I've accomplished in my life, but I believe too that there's probably those thoughts that we have in those moments that somewhere just you automatically begin thinking like, I'm a failure, I'm not accomplishing what I should be. So let's see, what would it be? Fear of failure, maybe, or maybe just the fear of never realizing my dreams or something.
Okay. So fear of falling short, maybe. So fear was an emotion you were experiencing.
Fear.
Anxiousness and fear. Let me jump back to that other column. On a scale of 1 to 100, if you're really to be honest with yourself, and at say minute 9 on hold,
right?
How much fear were you experiencing?
Quite a bit. Are we going to evaluate it on a scale?
Yeah, 1 to 100, just so we can measure it in some way.
Yeah, I would say we're probably going 6 to get that one.
Okay. I just want to get all the feelings down here. Fear and anxiety or anxiousness are very close to each other. Okay, so fear of failure, or I'm a failure, something like that. Now, I'm just going to, for the sake of this particular intervention, I'm going to say that's probably a fairly powerful thought.
Yeah.
A fairly primal thought. As we go deeper into the layers of who we are, our thoughts and our emotions become expressed in a more simple way.
That's true.
Fear is high, and the thought that the potential for failure. I could be deep down inside a failure.
Right.
That could generate that kind of thinking. So I'm going to circle that one and say that's our hot thought. In other words, the one that we're going to, for the sake of this exercise, we're going to
focus in on that.
Look at that as the fuel rod in the nuclear power plant of your brain, okay, or the meltdown or whatever. So now what we want to do is we want to apply our rational brain to this thinking and see what evidence there is. Now, evidence in a courtroom is like, it's not an idea. People don't present ideas. What they present when they give the court evidence is facts. They try to say, here's the evidence. this phone call was made at 6:53 p.m. He was on the phone till 7:03 p.m. and yeah. So when we talk about evidence that supports the thought that you could be a failure, we're talking about circumstances and situations that may have indicated that for you. So what facts support the truthfulness of this thought or image in your mind?
Well, okay, so let's see. Facts. Give me a moment, I gotta shift from the amygdala brain into facts. Well, you know, I was considering, but this doesn't really support it, but looking at the evidence thus far that I still have not, you know, that's only up to this point, but I still have not had contact with the person. I've called back, and I still haven't gotten contact.
Okay, so there's been no contact with the prospective employer?
But, you know, that doesn't necessarily mean it's a no answer.
That's true.
But
That's true. But what we're looking for is, let's play the prosecuting attorney, you. Right now, we're going to find the evidence that you are a failure.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm gonna go. That could be used as a fact.
Okay. Yeah, they're just blowing you off like you're nobody.
Right. Yeah. If I was a lawyer, I could throw that out there and try to make a mistake.
Yeah.
So.
What other evidence do you have that you're?
Are we going to the failure or back to the fear?
Well, we're going with the evidence that the thought that we're not going to try to. We can't present evidence for a feeling as much as we can for a thought. So a thought is, this is who I am, or this is what I am, and so we're looking for.
Okay. So let's see. The next thought. Are we still on the same one, or can I go with someone else?
Well, we're looking for the most powerful thought. So any evidence. These are all kind of These all kind of say the same thing, and the most powerful one for you likely selected someone else. I'm being ignored. I have to stay in a low-paying job. I'm not worthy of a better job. I may possibly fail at my attempts, and that's why I'm in this low-paying job. So the evidence that you have is to support that thought is that there's been no contact, and anything else any other evidence that supports that line of thinking.
Let's see. And there's been no contact, and also. Well, like I say, I have a colleague that works there, and so, you know, I could say that since, you know, they're probably privy to some sort of information, that maybe they would have called me and informed me that they heard something either way, or they would have called and informed me if it was good news.
They would have called me and informed me if it was good news. Okay.
See, there you go. That's some pseudo-substantial evidence.
Okay. Okay. Does I just want to ask this question. Does the fact that you're in a lower paying job right now, does that support that thinking at all?
Not necessarily.
Okay.
Could be due to several factors.
Okay. So that's not something that kind of piles on to this type of thinking that creates this fear and anxiety.
Well, it doesn't realistically support it, but it could be used as like.
Well, I don't want to really go where theoretically what could or could not be. I want to go with what is.
Yeah, I wouldn't. Say
okay. Well, wait. So we've got the evidence that supports the thought that there's been no contact, and they would have called me if it was good news.
Right. So, you know, those are my two.
Okay. All right. Those are the ones that come up for you.
Right.
Okay. Great. Now, what evidence do you have that doesn't support the thought that you know, that likely selected someone else, or you're being ignored, or that you fail when you put yourself out there. What evidence do you have that now we're doing the defense? Okay,
Right.
So what is in your mind? What does the defense have to say? No, this evidence doesn't support the facts.
Okay. Well, I will say that I have not yet received one of those customary, thanks and you're a great guy. But
So you haven't been rejected.
right, I haven't gotten that.
Yeah, I haven't been eliminated. Okay.
And let's see, what else does not support that? There's probably lots of things. I think the simple fact that I haven't actually spoken to anybody, I haven't spoken to a supervisor or whoever they may have, in position of doing the interviews.
I haven't spoken to a decision maker yet.
I haven't had any contact.
Okay.
And
Are there any experiences in your past as a person that doesn't support the idea that you're a failure?
well,
Not necessarily specific to this incident,
Right.
but is there anything that we could present to the court of your inner mind that would say, hey, you know what, that's nonsense?
right. Yeah, there's several things actually.
Okay.
There's I could start with the fact that I didn't fall into the whole wanting to kill my father and take his bride as my, no, that's Freudian, I'm sorry.
Okay.
I could start with the fact that, I'm not in the position that I'm in right now, so that actually indicates my abilities to get a job. It may not necessarily be this particular job, but I do have the abilities to get a job.
You have the skill set necessary to get this?
Right, qualified, have
Yeah.
a skill set,
Yeah.
not only to get the job, but to perform it,
Mhm.
and to function in the position that I've been hired for. The fact that I was able to attain the skill set and the abilities, through the schooling and all those things that were necessary to passing those exams.
Okay.
That shows.
Okay, so let me try to shorthand this thought, because that's more than I have room to write.
Yeah.
Can you, if you were going to give me that in one sentence, what would you say?
Let's see, how would I just I want to kind of sum it up in an I'm qualified kind of statement,
Okay.
but
I'll go with I'm qualified.
this is on both, as long
Yeah.
as it's all encompassing.
Yeah, I mean, I know. As another piece of evidence that strikes me, I don't know if it strikes you, is that you're currently employed in the field that you have the skill set and training for.
There you go.
Yeah.
I think that falls under that heading as well.
Yeah, somebody thinks you're worth it.
Right.
Yeah. Okay, so now what I want to do is in CBT, or cognitive behavioral therapy, what we talk a lot about is not that to say that the evidence that supports the negative thinking is not true, and that the evidence that does not support the negative thinking is true. In other words, bad thoughts are invalid and good thoughts are the only valid ones. No, we don't see that. But what the research has suggested is that what helps people understand and get a realistic view of what's going on in their life is for them to balance the thinking. Okay? So one way to make this cognitive connection in your brain is to use words like and however to join the evidence that supports the negative thinking with the evidence that doesn't support the negative thinking. So, for example, there's been no contact, and then we use a bridging word like however. Say, there's been no contact, however, I haven't been eliminated.
Right.
Or they would have called me if it was good news, and I haven't spoken to a decision maker. and I'm qualified. So let's practice this. Let's have you make that statement where you join your two thoughts together in your mind to see what happens to your emotions based on that.
Okay. That sounds fair enough.
Okay.
So yeah, I haven't received a call back. And initially I was thinking, well, that means I've been eliminated, but I haven't received a call back. However, I haven't spoken to anybody that's in a position really to give that final determination. So
now, is that true?
That's all true.
Is that 100% true?
Yeah.
Okay. So the truthful of that on a scale of 1 to 100, we can say is 100% true, right? Okay. And another thought you had is that they would have called me if it was good news.
Right,
Yeah. However, you haven't spoken to a person. Right?
Yeah.
So put that in your own words so I can hear you say it.
Okay. So, I believe that, because I know someone that works there, that she would have contacted me, or either, maybe a supervisor would have contacted me to say, hey, I heard this, or it doesn't look like, they've already filled the position, so hang it up. But I haven't actually heard back from her or either a supervisor, and nor have I received a letter, the customary letter, the old...
the Dear John letter.
Yeah, the depot.
Okay, so and then we can, for kind of a cherry on the banana split, we can say, and you are qualified.
And I'm qualified for the position.
Yeah. Is that all true?
And that's all true.
100% true, right? So both things are, you can, you haven't been eliminated, but you haven't heard back, and you're qualified.
That's
right.
Yeah.
Okay. So as an affirmation, we can say, if you think the percentage of trueness of those statements, which is 100% true, that the evidence you have on both sides is true, does that do when you think, what I would like you to do is close your eyes for a second and think that thought in a balanced manner, both sides of the equation. Okay. Now I'd like to ask you, as you think that, what happens to your feeling states? You reported that at the time you were anxious at about 50 out of 100.
Right.
Okay. When you think the balanced thought, what happens to the anxiety or the anxious feelings?
Those feelings are quelled.
Okay. So they go down. Could you give it a number?
Like a 6.
Okay. So you went from 50 to 6 on anxiousness. Frustrated, I imagine, as the call waiting process went on more and more.
So,
does that go down as well?
Yeah, I would say it's probably at a 0.
Okay, and your frustration goes away because the wisdom of it just matters. It's a matter of time.
Right.
Disappointment and fear were also mentioned. Did those go down as well?
Yeah, because I believe that looking at the balanced trueness of the situation, taking it into perspective, that those things become irrelevant, that they're kind of eliminated from the, because it's at this point there's no need for that yet. So it's just it's like, why am I having these feelings?
Right.
If there's nothing to support them.
Okay. So what we think and how we think and the linguistics of what we think are important to our mood state, and how we there's a book written called What to Say When You Talk to Yourself. And the idea is that to balance our thinking, sometimes we can take a look at things that may be valid that make us feel bad in some way. However, we can also join those thoughts with evidence that may not support that. And so the way to balanced thinking is to practice this. Now, what I would suggest that you do as a follow-up to this is I'll give you a few of these thought records,
Okay.
and over the next week, you just when you feel like a situation or a set of circumstances come up that give rise to a lot of emotions and a lot of feelings for you, I'd like you to just sit down and go through this exercise for yourself and try that balanced thinking exercise and see if it doesn't help you with negative emotional states.
I
Okay?
think I could do that.
All right. Thanks for coming in.
Yeah,
Appreciate
your
it.
help.
All right. Thank you.